Welcome to our webinar on using connected car data in the real world. Today's webinar is being hosted by SPD Automotive and LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And we have a great set of speakers to talk through today's topic. I'm Andrew Hart, Director at SPD, and I'll be your moderator for today. For any first timers out there, SPD Automotive is a market research and consultancy firm specifically focused on automotive topics like connectivity, autonomy, shared mobility and electrification. And it's through our research really that we're seeing this kind of expansion and explosion of connectivity in cars, particularly around embedded connectivity across the world, being driven by a mixture of internal factors and OEMs' desire to stay more connected to customers and their vehicles, and also external factors like legislation. And it's been a number of years now since there's been a lot of hype and discussion around the potential value of data that could come out of cars. And often there was talk about that value potentially reaching the thousands of dollars. But there's also been kind of a lot of pragmatic views over the last couple of years around how is that data value really going to be realized. We do track within SPD the progress that's been made by car companies in liberating data from cars, and we are seeing more and more vehicle programs, and we'll be hearing from one today from Mercedes-Benz, specifically aimed at making data available to third parties in a privacy-friendly manner to enable new types of value. And if you look at the press releases out there from various data aggregators and from various vehicle manufacturers, there should in theory be millions and millions of vehicles sharing data with third parties as we speak. But in reality, it's been quite difficult, and there's a number of good reasons for it. The journey that data needs to take before it connects to the car is quite a long and arduous one. There's a number of steps that need to be managed from a technical point of view, from a commercial point of view, from an organizational point of view, in terms of making sure that data is pre-programmed to some extent and designed in a way that will make it available after the vehicle has been released. And there's also a lot of concerns once the vehicle data leaves the car in terms of communication costs, how to manage subscription, renewal rates, a fragmented data ecosystem, a lot of concerns or lack of clarity around what the needs are of different data users, and of course, kind of first and foremost, how to manage privacy issues. And really that's why we're here today. That's today's webinar is to focus on some of these challenges and understand how close we are to overcoming them. And it's becoming more and more important, particularly if we look at the use cases that we're going to be focusing on today, which is around insurers, as it becomes more than just about the driver data and the driver behavior data, into also increasingly about the vehicle behavior data. And we're seeing these two worlds starting to come together from UBI and ADAS, which really, from an insurer's point of view, ideally would give them a holistic view of how both the vehicle and the driver are behaving. So that's what we're going to be focused on today. And as I said, we've got a great list of speakers who are going to be coming to share some insights on the various projects that they've been involved in. We've got Nick Walker, Director of Connected Car at LexisNexis Risk Solutions. We've got Massimiliano Mascoli, Head of InsurTech at Sara Assicurazione, and Christian Wolf, Senior Researcher at ATB and EU SmashHits Consortium Leader. So a lot to go through today. We're going to start with Nick, who's going to share with us some insights that they've gained through working with various insurers and OEMs on these types of programs. Nick, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, and good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you're in. I'd like to start by just giving a short backdrop on who we are. We've been in the business of providing data analytics and products to insurers for over 30 years now. We have many trusted relationships in the countries or regions where we work, predominantly across the US, UK, China. We're growing our footprint now across Brazil and also into Europe, where many of you are from. We're also building out our relationships with vehicle manufacturers as additional sources of valuable data points. And we'd really like just to share today some of the insights of what we've learned over the past year since we were together in Munich last October. many of you on the webinar here were there. But talking about who is here today, we've had a lot of interest in what we're saying today. Here is a slide which shows you or which companies are represented here. It's not it's not complete because we've had many registrations over the last couple of days, not been able to pull in all of the logos, but you'll see there that there's a massive representation from the key industries, the car manufacturers and the insurers, but also many providers into this this ecosystem that makes this whole subject very relevant. And if you add all the numbers up together in terms of how many cars have been manufactured and how many cars from the manufacturers are on the road today, and how many insurers are represented with the amount of policies, we are combined, we're reaching about 255 million consumers, and that's without double counting across the both sides of the equation here. The thing that's driving all of this interest is, as Andy said, there's obviously a growing stock of intelligent, connected and smart cars out there, and it's growing very, very rapidly. Now, we all know that forecasts are forecasts, and it was pretty difficult to forecast even that we were going to have some hiccups in this with the COVID pandemic. But nonetheless, there is a very, very large growth rate in connected and in intelligent cars. Let's call them intelligent cars, cars with ADAS features which enhance the safety of the vehicles. And we're going to be talking about that later on. What we're seeing here is that we have achieved critical mass in terms of numbers of vehicles out there. I know looking back over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of skepticism about how many cars are being built connected. Is it enough? How many cars really have intelligent and smart features? Is it enough to make a market? I think when you look at it today, it's a resounding yes. And the other interesting part is this isn't only about high-end and premium vehicles. This is about every vehicle. Most vehicles are now being built connected and with smart, safe features. So what are we trying to bring out today? The shared learnings that accelerate development. So number one, scale and volumes. We have seen over the past 12 months, again, since we met in October in Munich last year, that a lot of what we were talking about at that time was a little bit theoretical. That we saw that there was an opportunity to connect data from cars into the insurance world. We had some early grass shoots that were showing that that was possible, but really over the past 12 months, this has turned into reality, and we've been able to take things from being a business case right through to reality and operations. I think the second thing is that there's now much clearer benefits for consumers, OEMs and insurers. So it's right across the park that everybody can benefit from this, and those benefits are now coming really into focus, and we can see where they land. The third thing is the pathway to clearing barriers. There's been a lot of barriers. Andy shared the technical path, getting data from a car out to the market for benefit of consumers. There's other things too, consent, equitable data distribution, et cetera, that are there as barriers. We are now seeing that these barriers are getting cleared. A lot of activity that we're going to talk about some of that during the next period here. I mentioned this before. This was unseen when we were together a year ago. But what you see is that the pandemic is there, and it's had a pretty dramatic effect on the population, but also it's had a pretty large effect on our business. And when I say our business, I'm talking about a collective business. And just sharing a couple of graphs here. I'm sure these are things that most people on the webinar are familiar with. but we are looking at a massive dip in new car sales, the height of the pandemic. A resounding picture as a lot of governments put incentives in place, as did the manufacturers, for people to buy new cars, but it's bounced back, but it's unstable. The distances driven is obviously, people were in lockdown, they were not driving, started to come back, but it's nothing like the levels we were at before. And in motor claims too, there's been quite an impact on that. And all of these things have had impact on the audience that we're talking to today and the business that we're in. If you think about OEMs, every sale counts. When you take a big dip like that in the middle of the year, in terms of new car sales, the pressure has to be on recovery and selling cars, but also selling new services, and also being able to articulate the value of what it is that you're selling. We really feel that's of great importance to our OEM partners. Consumers themselves are re-examining what insurance they really need. We've seen insurers giving payback to their customers for premiums that where people have driven significantly less mileage. We also see that pay per mile is becoming, it's seen a very large growth rate, and it's starting to become a standard. Also, consumers have had more time to shop for insurance too. Claims went down, insurer customer touch points suffered. So the relationships there changed, but also claims processing seems to have moved up on the insurance agenda because of what's been happening. So quite a big dramatic effect on the industry. What we've seen is that it has accelerated our activities enormously in terms of what we've been able to achieve over the last 12 months in this market. On our telematics exchange, we now have 6 million cars and growing pretty rapidly. We've been able to interact with 7 insurers in Europe, and I'm going to talk about what we've done outside of Europe on a vehicle build data program to test our algorithms that I'll talk about later, where we have over 90% coverage at VIN level of vehicle build data that has been used to evaluate against real life claims. And on the exchange, we have 8 OEM groups, which is pretty significant in terms of our accomplishments. Where I think a year ago we were making our first announcements about our plans to integrate. We now have achieved quite a lot, as you can see. What we're really discussing here is what all of this data that we're gathering and the associated data points that we provide into this industry are doing. What benefit does it bring, and what benefit can it bring to the consumers that we all serve? And we mustn't forget that every car that is built and sold requires an insurance policy to go with it. So the customers are actually common. So we've got to look at what benefits we really bring and how that spreads. So if we look at what's going on, what have we learned from the car manufacturers about what the car manufacturers really want to achieve, what they would like to do with us? It's really all about expanding services, expanding connected services, brand interaction, but also not only that, it's about new models of ownership. Consumers' whole life cost become really important, and the road to autonomous driving. Electrification obviously comes into this in a big way, but these are the big trends that we see coming from the car manufacturers. If we look at this from the insurer view, our margin orders from the insurers that we deal with are really very clear. UBI needs to become mainstream. UBI has been proven to improve driver behavior, reduce accidents, save lives. It's generally seen as a good thing. There have been barriers in the way of aftermarket programs, which make it a little bit expensive and high friction. But mainstream UBI, be that driver behavior or be it mileage, is being asked to be mainstream. Knowledge of ADAS, and particularly active ADAS, is what we're being asked for, and our contribution towards new insurance products is very, very key. So why are we sitting in the middle, and why are we doing this? Basically, we've taken a look at if every car manufacturer wanted to connect to every insurer, it's going to cost a lot of money. We estimate that it's well in excess of 4 billion, and this is why we really have created what we're doing in the middle here, which is creating a telematics exchange to be a point of easy integration and easy data distribution. Plus, in that telematics exchange, apply a lot of analytics that needs to be made on the data, because not all data from vehicle manufacturers is the same. Not everything is equal, so we need to change the way that data is done into easy data points to be ingested by insurers. The very fact that the car is getting smarter and becoming connected really means that this data is of high value. There's many new safety innovations that are not always brought into play in an evaluation for an insurance policy. And we see that there is a real need to cover all of the vehicles that are built and are sold with the optional ADAS, not just the standard ADAS, which means getting data down to VIN level. And that VIN level is now in excess of 90% coverage of VINs in terms of how we've gathered that data. So we're getting that data from multiple points. Sometimes it's the OEMs, sometimes it's third-party sources, but we've managed to pull that together that really provides our coverage. And what have we learned from that by having all this data? We've performed a study. This has mainly been driven out of the US, where we have access to around 90% of the claims data that is being processed in the US by insurers. We've taken around 10 million vehicles, where we've looked at the effectiveness of ADAS features by vehicle type. And we've seen that, well, firstly, not all ADAS is equal. Different ADAS types or clusters, which I'll show you next, really have a different impact on vehicles. So it's not about how much ADAS, it's what ADAS is fitted. And it is also what combinations of ADAS that is fitted that really make the difference in real world driving. So as far as what we've done, we've done this review of 10 million vehicles. We've also started now, I think we've done somewhere around 1 million vehicles in Europe already with our insurance partners, taking claims data and looking at the ADAS effectiveness and then clustering it into ADAS rating indicators. And these are all European makes that you're seeing here. And each of these ratings represent different clusters of ADAS and different levels of effectiveness. And what you see there is that by VIN, you can create an ADAS rating factor, which is of high value to insurers. We know that some insurers, some of the larger insurers, have done similar studies and found similar results. The way in which we look at this is that every vehicle manufacturer names its ADAS features a little differently. So this needs to be normalized. The analysis needs to be equalized across all of the vehicle manufacturers so that it becomes very relevant to the insurers. So basically the rating indicator is what we would provide to an insurer. Not an easy thing to do, it takes a long time, but basically those shared insights really give back to both industries. How are the systems performing and how do we create value for customers? If you think about what I said about the vehicle sales in the last 12 months, the ability to inform a customer of the value they're getting by upselling ADAS features or whatever, it's it's very much unclear as to how that value can be really stated. This really helps. It communicates value to customers. And then from the insurance side, using these types of models in risk management, in pricing models, really makes an insurance quote for a particular vehicle, a particular VIN, much more accurate and much more relevant. So having said all that, I just want to reflect back on some of the barriers or some of the obstacles that we see where partnership and collaboration is really helping. A lot of these we're going to discuss in the next speakers slots, but we are really now making great ground in overcoming these obstacles and opening up the car data roadmap. Andy, that's as much as I wanted to say.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nick. Very interesting insights there from LexisNexis Risk Solutions. So now we're going to head over to Massimiliano's presentation and really get a deeper kind of insight into, from an insurer's perspective, what it's like to use some of this data and what the kind of growing role is of ADAS from an insurer's perspective. Massimiliano, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure being here today. Before starting, allow me to use a few seconds to introduce Sara Assicurazione. We are an Italy-based company, the official insurer of the local automobile club, and thanks to this strong bond we do have in our DNA, a peculiar care for road safety, we started already in 2016 a deep path of digital innovation, but we were already on the market in the early 20s, and we were the first one in Italy to offer a pay-how-you-drive product. So today we are leveraging on our expertise in motor insurance and telematics in order to get the most value we can from connected car data. I would like today to start from a quote I love, as also the other speaker were representing. Data is definitely the new oil. And today I would like to guide you through 3 trends are key according to our company for data valorization in motor insurance. I would start referring to price sophistication and optimization. Technical excellence has always been in our aim, but paramount availability of data coming from connected car give us the opportunity to develop really predictive and customer engaging pricing model, and also the access to non-traditional data can enrich our technical capabilities. Second step is we are clearly seeing that we are moving from a claims indemnification traditional perspective to more a risk prevention and mitigation one. So we need to be proactive in addressing risky behavior, so maybe via behavioral analysis and coaching feeders, and also to enhance technical solution and technology solution that can help us in doing so. Third, last but not least, we have to exit our comfort zone and start to offer non-insurance service directly or through a dedicated partner in the mobility ecosystem. I chose 3 words today to guide us quickly through this journey. So driving behavior, ADAS, and mobility ecosystem. Let's start from driving behavior. We have, I believe everyone today is well acquainted with traditional data used for insurance verification. Usually they are driver-centric attributes. Even when telematics kicked in, same information were mainly related to drivers. Sometimes telematics can be a bit costly, and that's why we also started to work on aggregate data. Nowadays, we are introducing in our models external data, contextual data, let's refer to weather or traffic, adding a lot of predictivity to our models. But what really connected car data is opening to us is the whole world of vehicle operation. So here, a good referral would be the diagnostic trouble codes, the DTC, which can allow very specific insurance quotation in warranty and extended warranty, and also in terms of services to customer, getting information, alarms, warning, contact centers, direct contact, and maybe also booking of a visit to your workshop is, in terms of service, a very good opportunity for insurers. So UBI, as also the other speaker were saying, is now a good opportunity in this era of real-time data streaming. And there are some advantages for insurers. Obviously, we can directly target clients which already self-revealed themselves as good drivers. We also have the opportunity to start to build our own capabilities in terms of data normalization and data management. And especially, we can pair the information coming from the car itself and the driving behavior with the usage of the smartphone within the same vehicle. And this will allow us to offer analysis and prevention services related to distracted driving. And I'll be there in a second, not before having presented what are the advantages for a customer for a UBI proposition. Mainly, you will receive a tailor-made offer which takes into account your specific individual mobility habits. And then we as insurers can address, and customer can receive interesting quote, effective quote, also if they are new car owners, young drivers, daytime commuter. So usually not the best target, not the friendly target for us as insurers. Last, we can put in place rewarding and coaching features that can really impact the driving habits, especially the bad driving habits of our customer. I was referring to distracted driving, so I have the pleasure to share what the lessons we learned so far, experimenting a bit in this area. First one is that both in the EU and the USA, distraction is definitely risky. There are a lot of data, plenty of data and information about this. Distraction adds something to our pricing models, had a knowledge about the size of the motor risk, which we were not aware of before. Distraction is significant. It's just not few people being distracted, but just think the fact that 1 people out of 3 drivers uses phone more of the 15% of the driving time. For us as insurers, it's now clear and plain that distraction and claims are correlated, and so we need to do something in this area. Second step of today's journey is about ADAS, and I would like to quickly introduce our initiative together with NCAP. For the few among the participants to this webinar who are not very familiar with NCAP, NCAP is a European independent body committed to safer cars and to provide knowledge about safety equipment of the cars to the consumers. What they are doing, basically, this just crashing cars and deeply analyze the impact of the crash on the body of the vehicle and of the occupants. What we did, we started in 2018, acquiring data from NCAP and offering a 25% reduction in our MTPL products. All our customers with a 4 or 5-star rated NCAP vehicle could access to this discount. And in our discount metrics, we provide a prominent weight on the safety assist part of the rating, which is directly referred to the ADAS installed on the vehicle. So as a matter of fact, NCAP provides us a good proxy of what OEMs, for example, can provide us in terms of ADAS equipment of the vehicle. I will show you now the first result. It's 2 years today that we have in our portfolio NCAP vehicles, and as you can see, there is a significant reduction in claims frequency, in severity of the claim itself, and this entails a very significant saving on technical loss ratios. What we have learned so far, which is quite in line of the conclusion presented by Nick a few minutes before, the number of ADAS itself can reduce the claims frequency. Obviously, ADAS technology also impacts the cost, but we started to observe different patterns if we refer to bodily injury or property damage and body of the vehicle damage. Not all ADAS features perform the same, and it is true even if we refer to different feature ADAS, but also if we refer to same ADAS features but implemented and developed by different OEMs. So a per brand model approach, as we are having today, is no more enough. We need to free the full potential, and we need to access data for active ADAS to a VIN level. And so the first step would be a normalized ADAS classification, and we are working on this together with the LexisNexis risk solution teams. Last step of my presentation today is about the mobility ecosystem. We are pretty aware that mobility value chain is an opportunity not only for car manufacturer and insurers, but a lot of stakeholders are now accessing this chain. Let's refer, for example, to the big tech, to oil and gas company, to telcos. And so we can use the motor insurance policy as access point. But we need to go beyond our traditional offering and include non-insurance services as well. We need to go out of our comfort zone. And connected car data here represent really great potential in order to add value to services we could be already able today to provide, but especially they are amazing enablers for a bunch of services. I'll show you just few of them. So for example, we can start from the manufacturing step, designing together with manufacturer the ADAS, which are more appropriate for our insurance proposition. We can work on usually not very appreciated area of risk. Let's think, for example, to the long-term rental. There is a huge opportunity on service to vehicles. We already refer to predictive maintenance, and obviously just name it, all the digital services world that the connected data can enable and open to us as insurer. Before closing the presentation, just our educated guess on which would be the road ahead, the main challenges that the insurer, motor insurer in particular, would be facing in the very short term. And that's also the answer that Sara is trying to offer. So we need to invest in mobile sensor and analytical tool, and this makes sense only if we enlarge our customer data pool. This is possible developing digitized customer interaction. This will give us also the opportunity to build up our internal know-how and capabilities. All this has a sense just if it is included in a view of cooperation, partnership with OEMs and sharing the data. This is the path we see ahead of us, and it would give us the opportunity to play a leading role in a quickly evolving market and not to be just on the edge of this ecosystem. So indeed, it's everything from my side. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Massimiliano. That was some really interesting insights on both where we are today, but also where we need to go next. And on that note, we've got Christian Wolf up next, who's going to be sharing some insights from ATB on some of the practicalities of connecting and accessing data from cars. Christian, over to you.
Yes, welcome everybody. So I'm the last presenter for this session today. So objective of the presentation, first of all, I would like to thank you at all that we have the possibility to present something what we did here from the research perspective. And objective of this presentation today is just to give a short overview on some past as well as running projects where we exactly dealing with what we heard already about, because there are a lot of challenges in connecting car data and providing data for third parties. And we start a long journey in last years also together with automotive industry, so with big automotive partners like Volkswagen, Renault, Fiat, but also with some big companies who would like to use services and build some car data and would like to build some services out of that to come up with some solution how to bring this more in the market and make it more available for everybody. So before I would like to start to go more detail into the SmashHits project, which is just running project started this year, where we have also LexisNexis in as one of an industrial partner. That's a project funded by the European Commission, where we have the objective here more or less to make data markets more attractive and trustful, especially for its key stakeholders, meaning for data owner, OEMs, and data customers. We heard already something in another presentations, maybe from, for example, from Daniel Rieksinger from Daimler also, that they also told that it's very important that transparency for data owners is one of the aspects which needs to be solved. This is also one of the topics which we will address here in SmashHits, but also simplifying all this consumer consent stuff, which is given in the scope of gathering data and providing data to service provider at the end. So there you have a lot of processes where the consumer is involved and needs to give consent. And this is also one big issue which needs to be solved to bring the system more running and more acceptable for everybody. So, but however, before we came up with the SmashHit ideas, we start already in 2015, so 6 years ago or 5 years ago, with the Automotive project. It was first initiative started in the sense where we really start with build up some data marketplaces from the automotive perspective, as well as from the needs of service provider, how to bring vehicle data to the outside world and how to make this more attractive for service provider as well as for the automotive industry. And then in the next project, coming up project, was the Cross-CPP project, which has more system complexity as well, more data and volume involved. We show it later on, but both of these projects were mainly addressing data access and also data usage support. And then now the SmashHit project, which just started this year, is more or less about trust and simplicity on how to get access to the data and makes processes much more easier for all partners involved in the whole chain. So when you look in the past, journey start with the Automotive project, and at this point, 2015, so there were nearly no real data markets available. So if you took the position of the service provider who was really interested in getting data, to use also the potential of vehicle data, because there's at all a lot of information, a lot of sensor information which you can use to build service out of that, not just for the automotive industry, also for other industrial sectors, for example, for weather data experts who are really interested in getting weather data out of cars, like temperature, humidity, and so on. So also to build up and to improve their weather services in the sense that they can forecast the weather much more better than we can do it today. So there's a big potential behind, but there was no possibility to have access to this information at all, or just few information, and then most of the information was in closed OEM solutions hidden. And if you have access to that, then you have also the problem as a service provider that there's a problem that you have different data formats and different interfaces where you have to connect your systems to, meaning at the end that's not really an efficient solution, that's a very uneconomical solution which was existing on the market. So that was hindering at the end and was a big obstacle, so that such data can be used also for other by other partners to build services out of that. So therefore, partners in Automotive projects, so meaning OEM partners as well as service provider partners, together with software house Atos, build up a whole ecosystem solution, really describing on how to gather information and then also how to provide this information via one marketplace. So this ecosystem is open for the integration of data from every OEM. So it's not a specific solution for one OEM, and has also the charm at the end that you have one marketplace with one interface where you can have access as a service provider to information from different brands. So make the system much more easier to build up then services out of data coming from vehicles. And one big solution or result of the project was then also these common vehicle information models. So the car makers, they are sitting together also developing these data models. So what kind of data they think they can provide to the outside world, and that we have then the same format and same interface for all data, independent from which service provider or from which OEM the data was coming. So next project starting afterwards was Cross-CPP project. It really builds strongly on what we have achieved in Automotive. So there we just extend the whole system by the ability to integrate in the data model as well as in the marketplace developed there also data from other industrial sectors. For example, here in this cross-CPP project, we also use data coming from Siemens smart buildings. So we have also a lot of sensors and a lot of data which they can provide from buildings there, so that there's also possibility to have access to this information. And then we also develop their solutions to support data customers, so service providers, and yes, do some data analytics on the information which is available in the marketplace, so that they, if you take the role, for example, of a small company who has not really experience and the processing power in the background, can use also some toolbox tools, data analytic toolbox tools, which are offered by the solutions. So now we come to the project SmashHits. So that's a newest project in the whole chain. So where we work here together also with the insurance company, with LexisNexis, but also with smart city companies from Helsinki, which have some smart city solutions in mind. And Volkswagen is also involved, because one of the key input data we also have here are vehicle data, which you would like to use. And one of big issues we identified also in previous project was that we really have to build everything around the user, what the user would like to have, as well as to build a system which is really centered about user and stakeholder or key stakeholder needs, in the sense that, for example, data owner, maybe vehicle owner, really have always the possibility to see what kind of data is used and for which services is used, how long is it used, and so on, so that the data customer, the data owner always is really informed about that. But we have also some problems, or in the sense, like say, there's some concerns, let's say like that, also on sites from the service providers as well as also from the OEMs, so that they really see that there are a lot of steps required to gain consent. And this is something which hinders it and also the success of such solutions, because when you ask data, yes, owner, a car, vehicle owner at the end to give consent not once, so they had to give for one service and different step consents also in different platforms, so then they are not willing at the end to go for such a service. So this process needs to be somehow be easiest, or make to be easier, and this is also one of the goals of the SmashHits project. Time to do that is also very critical for a lot of the services, and also one of the issues that is really important here is also to verifying if the person giving the consent is really the person in the background. So this is also something which we address here by some certification system which we plan to develop in the scope of SmashHits project. And another issue which you also may know from car industry, when you gather information from vehicles, vehicles will be sold during lifetime, at least 2, 3, sometimes or more often. So then you often have the problem with broken consent chain. So you don't know when owner has sold a car, and so then partners often do not know if or will not be informed that the consent chain is broken. So this is also something which we would like to solve by our platform solution, which we develop here in SmashHits project. Mentioned before is that we have to also go for solutions that we offer data owner at the end, solutions where they have full control, always have the possibility to see who use data for what and which issue, and to build what kind of services out of that, and so giving also some support for service providers here to creating legal binding contracts. So this is also something which will help service provider later on to go for contract building and consent stuff. So when we go on, what I can say at the end, so key objective for SmashHits here is that we have to, yes, define and develops these trustful system solutions so that we have trustful solutions not for data owner but also for OEMs as well, for service provider partners who would like to develop services out of that and then simplify the consent process. And this is also what's here shown on our last slide, so what we have expected impacts from our project. So most of this is just dealing with trust, so giving more trust to everybody who is involved in the whole chain, but also to simplify the whole process, to make it much more easier, and to have, for example, this is also something which we heard from automotive industry, so that they would have also possibility to track where the data is flowing through, because they don't want to have data scandal at the end. So when data is somewhere misused in some dark channels, let me say it like that, then they would like to identify from where the data was coming, that the data maybe is not coming from a Volkswagen or Daimler platform, so that the data then is maybe coming from a platform from a user, which has used the data from the service provider, used the data to provide to create the services, and this will be solved here in scope of SmashHit by some fingerprinting technology, so that we put some fingerprinting stuff on the top of that. So by all together, we can say that we have the goal here with SmashHit to increase willingness at the end to provide IoT data, and just by this also to enable them, the community of service provider in Europe, to build a lot of new services out of that, and to open up the whole vehicle data potential more for European service provider community. So that's more or less what we can say here very shortly from our research activities. So maybe we have also the time to discuss this a bit more in detail, and if you have any questions for that, you also can contact me directly.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christian, for some really practical insights and pieces of advice there from the SmashHit project. So now we're going to move on to the interactive part of the session, really where we're going to ask the audience to provide your perspectives on a couple of questions. So the first question that you're going to be asked to vote on is, what is the most important insurance application for vehicle-centric data? Is it UBI products, mobility products, connected claims, or understanding ADAS capability? So take a couple of seconds to read through the question and vote which one you think is the most important insurance application for vehicle-centric data. So we can see here the results. It's pretty evenly split, but the highest one at the moment, interestingly, is around understanding ADAS capability. Massimiliano, looking through those results, anything that surprises you from that?
Not really surprised. I expected a balanced answer, and I do share that probably ADAS capabilities are the ones that can represent a quick win. I would say on UBI products and connected claims, probably there's a longer way to follow, but ADAS capability is just out of the corner.
Nick, from your side, are you seeing across your different insurer clients a greater urgency now, or a greater realization perhaps that ADAS can play such a strong role in their own business?
I think it's both a greater urgency and a bigger realization that the impact that ADAS can have. I think the traditional thought has been, ADAS is expensive, so it increases repair costs and affects claims. But I think now the data is showing something a little different, which is why I believe this is coming out on top. So those two things connect together, the connected claims and understanding ADAS capability. It doesn't surprise me that they come out on top.
It's going to be really interesting to see how those two kind of fit together. You talked about your ADAS rating, and obviously we've seen different companies out there with UBI ratings or ratings of driver behaviors, and building kind of a combined score creates a kind of new two-dimensional puzzle in some ways of how you start to see the world. So very, very interesting time really to see how insurers adapt to that. We're going to move on to our last question. We're going to skip question 2 just because we're a bit short on time and move on to question 3. So question 3 is, what is the biggest roadblock to utilizing vehicle-centric data for insurance applications? Is it consumer data privacy concerns, data privacy legislation, OEM and insurers integrations, or lack of an industry data standard? So what is the biggest roadblock to utilizing vehicle-centric data for insurance applications? Good stuff. So here we have the results. So we've got consumer data privacy concerns, and interestingly, the integration side of OEM and insurers and how they work together. Christian, any thoughts on this from the projects that you do with SmashHit?
Yeah, that's not it's exactly what I also expect here. What is nice to see is that not data privacy legislation is the biggest roadblock, because this is also something which should maybe also support then the owner, the data owner at the end. But for sure, data privacy, it's a big concern, and where we have to find some practical solutions to make all the system solution much more easier. So what we have also in mind for this SmashHit project, and the connectivity with the OEMs, and also the willingness of the OEMs to provide the information and the data for third parties. This is also an issue which we have to solve somehow, and not to address some specific solutions for just having one or two services to make the whole thing much more open up at the end. So I think that's something where we have to work on. And you can see here also the standard issue. I mentioned that also in my presentation, so that we may have also there some standard in the sense that we have a common data model for the OEMs, or a common interface, so that it makes much more easier that in the end also for insurers or other third-party providers to have access to the data.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting, over the last 5 or 6 years, sometimes it's felt like a little bit of a chicken and egg situation between data providers and data users. So it's been really interesting hearing all of your stories, real stories, on the progress that's been made. As Nick said, it's kind of moving away from theory into reality. And I think through that journey, we're starting to find out that sharing data is less of a technical challenge and more about the kind of commercial and organizational side. And given how different car makers and insurers are, it takes patience and hard work in bringing these together. And I think a key to all of this is finding a common language to talk through these topics. And that's really been the purpose of today. So I would like to thank again all of our speakers and all of you for joining. We hope that it's been helpful for you. And we hope that we can continue the conversation throughout the rest of this very strange year and next year. And we'll be back in touch soon. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined.
Since motor insurance has existed, we have calculated a consumer's risk using combinations of location, claim history, gender, age, occupation, distance driven, and other rating factors. Today, we are witnessing a rapid increase in vehicle connectivity, as well as advancements in vehicle safety technology and autonomous driving. Today, the car is becoming the star. LexisNexis Risk Solutions offers a product set that harnesses and distributes vehicle data. Data that can yield new actionable insights and opportunities for insurers to use vehicle data to drive renewal strategies, consumer segmentation, and opportunities to provide enhanced customer experiences. Starting from clean and accurate vehicle-based data, we can convert the vehicle registration to VIN to build a solid data foundation. Using the car manufacturer's embedded telematics, we provide usage-based insurance programs and driver behavior scoring. We can provide distance readings directly from the odometer. This ends estimations, forecasts, and the potential for error. And pay-how-you-drive options, where insurers can launch mass-market driver scoring and safety programs. In 2020, the majority of new cars come equipped with Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, or ADAS. These systems feature driver alerts or can even complete maneuvers, often safer than the driver can. However, each system can have a different name, functionality, or calibration, making it hard to use in underwriting. For example, there are over 40 different names for automatic emergency braking and 20 different names for adaptive cruise control. That's 24,000 possible combinations for just 2 safety features. So we've created a common classification of ADAS from millions of lines of data sourced from our OEM partners. This means the features of a car and their relative performance can be understood and used by insurers. Our research demonstrates drivers are progressively willing to share their data when there's transparency and value, which is why consumer consent, compliance and control are at the heart of our solutions. From a single integration, you can access a suite of vehicle data products and multiple car manufacturers' data to enable point-of-use delivery across the insurance value chain. Visit www.insights.lexisnexis.com/automotive for more information.